Ladies and gentlemen, in the first half of this video, I will be discussing the ETF decision coming in 3 or 4 days, potentially one of the biggest moments in Bitcoin's price history. And I'm being serious when I say that, but we don't really know what's going to happen for sure. So we're discussing some of the controversies around that, some of the separate opinions, some of the separate perspectives, discussing my opinion on the whole situation. And then we're moving into a very interesting topic in the second half of this video, moving into a topic relating to 2024. Guys, 2024 is the start of the bull market as per the 4-year cycle. We've made it through the long crypto winter. There's much to be looking forward to, and it all starts this year. We're discussing price targets, when Bitcoin will break all-time high, what the market will shape to look like, how do we know when the top is in, all these various things, as well as the ETF news. Big video today, broad topics. Ladies and gentlemen, let's get into it. I'll start this video, guys, by giving you an analysis on ETFs on Bitcoin. They're coming very shortly, in about 3 to 4 days now. And then I'll move into some of the more interesting stuff, right? I'll move into the chances of potential correction, where that correction could take us, and more specifically into the 4-year cycle, when Bitcoin will reach all-time highs, because I believe that Bitcoin will reach all-time highs in 2024. I believe that 2024 will be the year that starts the actual cyclical bull market. And then finally, how we can predict where Bitcoin's going to top, right? We know when Bitcoin's going to top as per 4-year cycle, but we'll cover that as well. But where will Bitcoin top, right? That's what we're going to get into as well. We have a formula to predict that kind of thing, but we also have a more, I guess, vague and a different method way of predicting it, which would be the RSI and the monthly chart. So that's interesting as well. So let's start by doing a brief analysis on ETF. I don't want to spend too much time on it because there's really not much to discuss. Bitcoin right now is in a pretty neutral position from a TA perspective or medium term. Yes, it's still in an upwards trend. It's been in an upwards trend for a very long period of time. In fact, the amount of time that Bitcoin has been in an upwards trend is quite, mind-boggling, really. I mean, it's been 4 straight months of uptrend, 4 straight months of consecutive higher lows and consecutive higher highs. You don't see this kind of thing very often. In fact, you don't see it very often at all. I did a community post, and we'll go see it right now on my community page right here on YouTube. It could have been about a week ago now, as you can see, 13 days ago. It has now been 232 days since Bitcoin has seen a 25% plus drawdown. The last time Bitcoin went this long without a drawdown of 25% or more was 2011. So that gives you an idea of just how exacerbated, how over-exaggerated this upwards trend has become, and the only justification for that, the only explanation for that is ETFs, right? ETF narrative has driven Bitcoin to the upside massively, and every single move to the downside we've seen has been bought upwards. No one is willing to sell into these downside moves. Just about 4 days ago, we saw a massive flush to the downside. As you can see on the candle I just circled, that happened within basically 2 hours. We went downwards massively, about 4,000 USD. But all that really did was reset the funding rates and actually put Bitcoin in a decent position to keep hovering in this price level. So that wasn't bearish at all, really. We're in a situation here where the TA is not only neutral, but it's also useless. We're in an upwards trend that's lasted so long that it's kind of impossible to determine when it's going to end. We just have to kind of wait for it to end. But we know for a fact that Bitcoin is now over pushed to the upside. It's exhausted. It's seen patterns of exhaustion for very long periods of time. It's seen RSI divergence for very long periods of time. It's seen volume descending in the upwards trend for very long periods of time. We know all of this. Bitcoin is in a pattern of exhaustion. It's not looking particularly strong from a TA perspective, but at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what the TA looks like, because we have the ETF decision, the deadline, that has pumped Bitcoin so high, and the ETF deadline itself coming in 3 or 4 days. That is what's going to drive the price action, not the TA. So it's kind of a situation in which we don't really care too much about what the short and medium term charts look like. We just have to understand what's going on with the ETFs. Now, there are rumors going around. For example, Matrixport is a company that's out there saying that the ETF is going to be declined. There's a couple more of them saying the ETF is going to be declined. But for the most part, people are in general consensus that ETFs are going to be approved. Now, I'm not going to sit here and predict what's going to happen with ETFs. I think it's probably more likely they are approved based on the evidence, based on BlackRock, for example, never really seeing any rejections on applications. They've only seen 1 historical rejection on applications out of like 500. We've got spot ETF advertisements coming out from various companies here. We've got Grayscale winning a lawsuit against the SEC for declining the ETF in the past. So there's various things you can look at to say, okay, look, ETFs are probably more likely than not. And I'll agree with that. I think they are very much more likely than not. But the fact of the matter is there's no definitive proof for any bias. We don't actually know whether the ETF's going to be approved or not. I think it's very likely, but I'm not going to sit here and say I'm certain, because I'm not. At the end of the day, I don't have the knowledge to be certain, and no one does. It's just guesswork to a certain extent. And furthermore, not only do we not know what's going to happen, we also know that, when the ETF is approved or denied, we don't know what's going to happen then either. Now, look, I'll tell you this. If the ETF is declined, Bitcoin's tanking. I mean, there's no way around that. If the ETF is declined, Bitcoin is tanking. I think everyone can agree with that, because this entire move to the upside has been filled with millions of buyers, right, who are relying on ETFs being approved. And if they're not approved, Bitcoin's going to tank. The whole market's going to tank very, very quickly. In fact, I would expect it to be one of the biggest drops I've ever seen. I mean that seriously. I expect if we decline the ETFs, that will be one of the biggest drops Bitcoin ever sees. But on the more likely chance that it's approved, even then we don't really know what's going to happen. I mean, let's be honest, we don't really know what's going to happen, right? If they're approved, it very well could be a sell the news event. It could be, because if you think about how exacerbated this move has been to the upside for this period of time, very long period of time, without a 25% or more correction, the upwards trend hasn't broken once. We've seen no significant correction throughout the entirety of this upwards trend. We've gone upwards 86% in the price action, no correction whatsoever. Who's to say the ETFs aren't priced in? Who? And if you say they aren't priced in, what is your evidence for saying that? Nothing. It's just guesswork. So the ETF decision, if it's declined, it will tank. And if it's approved, we don't really know what's going to happen. It could pump, it could tank. We don't know. So there's not really much you can do as a YouTuber like myself in terms of giving people insight about ETFs. We just kind of have to wait to see what happens. But I want to make people very aware. If the ETF is approved, that does not guarantee a pump to the upside. Not at all. Right? So I want to make sure people know that, because a lot of people will lose a lot of money if all they think is, okay, approve means good. Approve means good for the price. Because obviously an approval is more likely, so that could incline people to put massive amounts of money into Bitcoin preemptively, not actually understanding the full circumstance. Just because the ETF might be approved, or very well could be, or is very likely to be approved, that doesn't mean Bitcoin is certain to go upwards. That's not really how it works. Okay, pricing in is a very real thing, and this very well could be the case right now. The ETF very well could be priced in. But I don't want to spend too much more time on it. We've got the final deadline in 3 or 4 days. So it's coming very soon. Keep an eye out. And obviously, it's quite likely we'll see a chain reaction of approvals. I don't think the SEC will, approve them all individually. I think it will be more of a bulk event. They'll approve a bunch at once. That's my personal speculation. Again, not much evidence for that, but it just seems more convenient in my opinion. It seems more likely. So get ready for massive volatility over the next few days as these ETF decisions draw nearer. It really is going to be an insane period of the market. And you can see even in the last 3 daily candles here, just the price action just absolutely slowing down to a halt in these last 3 daily candles. People have already made their moves, right? People have already gotten in if they want to get in. They've already gotten out if they want to get out. Now it's just a waiting game. We're literally counting down here. It's a ticking time bomb until we see an explosion or a crash. There's no in between there, I don't think. So that's the first part of the video, the ETF decisions. What's next? Next, we're moving into something that's still related to ETFs. It's the correction possibility. If we do see a correction on Bitcoin, what could that look like? Well, first and foremost, right, we have to understand where Bitcoin is. It's in a range between 38.5k and 48k. That's the range right now. Now, I've always said, and I will continue to say, we could very well go to 48k before we reject downwards, but I see a rejection from that level as quite likely. I see a rejection from any level here as quite likely. I think that we will see a correction before the halving. I do believe that. Now, again, ETFs complicate exactly where it's going to be at, where it's going to stem from, but I do believe that Bitcoin can't continue this upwards trend forever, and I do believe we're running up a bit too soon here. I don't think the bull market has actually begun yet. I believe it starts after the halving, and so I believe we need to see a correction before the halving, especially given how strong this upwards trend has been without a correction. So where could that correction go? Where could it take us? Well, as we know, and as I've just explained, it's very hard to actually give you price points because we don't know what's going to happen with ETFs. After the ETF, we'll be able to understand it a bit better. But I can give you RSI price points because I know that in the previous 2 cycles, which obviously Bitcoin acts cyclically, so if we point to the same part of the previous 2 cycles, which is basically 2015, 2016, and 2019, 2020, that's the same period of time that we're in now, we can look at the trends of what happened there and apply them to the current date. And we have RSI ascending support lines on the weekly chart. And basically, the correction that we saw pre-halving on both occurrences took us down below this RSI line, below this RSI support line. We've got the same RSI support line stemming from back here in June 2022, and we're very high above it right now. If we do see a correction, I would be looking to target this RSI weekly chart line and potentially even dropping below it like we did in the previous 2 cycles, but at least targeting that line for a bottom of that correction. This is something we'll keep a close eye on. I recommend you do that as well. So now we've discussed what could happen with ETFs. We've discussed what a correction could look like before the halving. But I also want to make something very clear, because I perhaps have given you a bit too much pessimism here, right? I'm not sitting here and saying that, the ETF will damage the cyclical structure at all in any way, whether it go too high or go too low. I don't think the ETF means much cyclically for Bitcoin. I actually don't. I believe that the cyclical theory will stand true regardless of whether the ETF is declined or approved. I believe that Bitcoin will be reaching an all-time high in 2024, regardless of what happens with the ETFs, and specifically, I believe that Bitcoin will be reaching an all-time high not only in 2024, but probably towards the end, the second half of 2024, right? That is what I believe, and that is what I believed based on this trend here. Now, we have a developing trend on Bitcoin. It's not concrete yet, but it is developing, where we have a pattern of 1,100 days between the cyclical all-time high and the break of that all-time high after the bear market. That happened in 2016, it happened in 2019. If that happens again, that will bring us to a Bitcoin all-time high around December or November 2024. But obviously, since it's a loose trend, we have to give room for error. It could be, 50 days this way, 50 days that way. And so we're just going to stay a little bit more conservative here and say Q4 2024. Let's just say that Q4 2024, we're likely to see an all-time high on Bitcoin and that's actually not only likely as per this developing trend. Now, this developing trend alone wouldn't mean much, but since it's based on the 4-year cycle, which is a larger trend, it does mean quite a bit. But it also means a lot because we're following it quite nicely, right? If we look at where the price is right now, we look at where the deadline is over here, we're on track pretty nicely. See a correction, go upwards, break it, cool, good. It looks pretty good to me, and I've always said since 2022, I'll continue to say it now, that I believe that Bitcoin will see a break of its 70K, 69K all-time high in the end of 2024, towards the end of 2024. Give or take, 50 days, basically. I've always said that. So I'm still predicting that. We're still on track for that on Bitcoin. We're still very well on track for that on Bitcoin. Again, hopefully the ETF doesn't do too much damage to the cyclical structure. I don't necessarily think it will, but we'll see. But yes, 2024, obviously we had the halving in 2024, and if we look at the previous halvings, we had a halving back here in, I believe, July 2016, we had a halving back here in May 2020, we have a halving on April 2024, we had a halving over here, I believe somewhere around June or July 2012. You can see that the bull markets really only start after the halving. That's when the bull markets start. It's like, yeah, we can run up, we can go upwards in price before the halving like we did on every single occasion, like we're doing right now. But the actual bull market, that only actually starts after the halving. And so I believe that not only will 2024 be a bull market year, but as well as 2025, but I also believe this will be the year where we break all-time highs. So I think that we're getting very caught up in this short-term ETF narrative, and I think it is very meaningful and very impactful. But we have to remember the cyclical theory as well. We can't be thinking, like people have thought in every single cycle in the past, that something's going to trigger a super cycle or this time's different, when there's no evidence to suggest that at all. If we break all-time highs next week, cool. Okay, maybe we can start saying, maybe this time looks a little bit different. But even then, there's not much data to support it. And certainly, right now, there's zero data to support it. So I believe that Bitcoin will see an all-time high this year. I believe the bull market will start after the halving this year. I believe that bull market will extend until late 2025. And I believe we'll top out late next year. But how do we, and this kind of moving on from that point here, how do we know where Bitcoin's going to top? Well, I've got some formulas I've gone through in the past. You can scroll back in my video history and find videos marked with the title, where's Bitcoin going to top in 2025? Those formulas are basically giving me predictions on Bitcoin. It's going to top between around 103K and 196K. That's a very vague range, but we're not going to be able to narrow it down until the halving. But basically, we will be breaking 100K in this bull market, possibly going up to close to 200K in this bull market. Based on this formula, again, we'll be able to narrow that down on the halving. You can watch videos I've done on that in the past. But if we want another way to look at it, another way to predict the high, we can look at this monthly chart RSI trend. We have a descending channel on the monthly chart RSI. You can see that's marked every single top and bottom on Bitcoin. It marked the 2013 all-time high, the late 2013 all-time high, marked the 2015 bottom, 2017 all-time high, 2019 bottom, 2021 high, 2022 bottom, and it's probably going to mark the late 2025 high as well. So if we're approaching the RSI to this red line in late 2025 and we touch it, that's going to be a sign to sell all your Bitcoin and get the hell out of the market. So that's something we need to keep an eye on as well. I thought I'd bring that to your attention briefly because it is actually very important and I don't see many people talking about it. That's something that is slept on quite a lot. So I hope you find that useful. But guys, bit of a broad video today. I covered a lot of things. Covered the ETFs, covered the correction possibility that I believe will occur before the halving, covered the actual cycle itself, entering a bull market this year after the halving, and covered methods of finding tops in 2025 and also for your cycle itself. So quite a few things covered. I hope you found it useful. Guys, we're waiting for that ETF decision. I'll keep you updated. It's just a few days away now. It's going to be very, very big. So fingers crossed for a good result, but we'll have to wait and see. It's kind of hard to predict. Thank you for watching, ladies and gentlemen. Go ahead and check out the VIP group on Telegram. We trade altcoins sub-daily in the VIP group. I give you entry signals. I give you stop-loss requirements, take-profit requirements, everything you need to trade the coin. We just released our Q4 trading results for 2023. We had a pretty good quarter, 23 wins, 9 losses, bringing our total win rate over the past year and a half to 78%, which is quite nice. So go ahead and check that out if you're interested. We then have the Crypto Academy. We then have Bitget and Bingx exchanges. Bingx is global non-KYC and Bitget is global KYC minus the USA. So take your pick depending on your geographical location, depending on your preferences for KYC. Both are extremely low in trading fees. I use them both personally. I handpicked them both personally. They've both never been hacked before. My referral links down below will give you a 15% permanent lifetime discount on trading fees. So you can save literally thousands of dollars with my referral link. Go ahead and sign up to either of these exchanges. Help yourself and help the channel. And finally, if you want to get educated on cryptocurrency, educated on the markets, how to trade the market specifically before the bull run, the Crypto Academy's Become a Trader 10-unit course will get you there. This is a university-style course developed by myself and Megawell Crypto and ran by myself and Megawell Crypto. You can check out all the information on the website as well as our email address or contact. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll catch you tomorrow. Cheers.